Hi, this is Donald here, and this is my review of Neuromancer by William Gibson. Neuromancer was a science fiction book written in 1984, and it's one of the founding books of the genre of cyberpunk. In my opinion, this is one of the golden ages of science fiction. You have Predator, Alien, you have many movies and many books out in this time frame. It was really a good time for science fiction. Neuromancer is one of the famous books of this science fiction era as well. There are many books and movies that were inspired by Neuromancer, at least in some extent, such as The Matrix. Neuromancer is a book about a discarded hacker living in a futuristic Tokyo. Now, in the 80s, Japan was on a huge economic boom, so a lot of science fiction and a lot of books and people thought that Japan would maybe even overtake the United States. So in this fictional world, Japan is crazy futuristic and rich and powerful. Now this discarded hacker is recruited by a mysterious group alongside a heavily augmented street samurai girl. They go on some adventures that include hacking into the digital matrix world, traveling the world, discovering the truth of who their employer is and what's actually going on. Now, if you're not familiar with the genre of cyberpunk is a science fiction futuristic world, but not just futuristic. It has a lot of drugs, like a sexual revolution, very advanced technology, including human augmentations and robot parts and artificial organs and that kind of stuff. It's a very grimy world with a lot of slums and rundownness to it. There's artificial intelligence and a master web. And in general, there's a breakdown in social order. So you might see lots of crime, syndicates, gangs, fighting in the streets, but also high-end corporate espionage and conspiracies, etc., etc. Neuromancer is a relatively short book at only 275 pages. The book is a nice size, elegant, and really awesome to look at and own. I just enjoy looking at it, honestly. It's a cool cover. But don't let the relative shortness of the science fiction book deceive you. This book is hard to read. It is science fiction in the style where the writing is confusing, and there are many made-up words and concepts and locations that you have to wrap your head around quickly with no explanation or little explanation. The author is okay with you not being exactly sure what's going on. It's one of those books. It's your head in first immersion, and a lot of things are just left unexplained. There's also some surrealism in the book, especially with the hacking and the heavy use of drugs, and that can kind of twist your perception of what's actually going on. This is not an easy book to read quickly, but you will get used to the writing, and it does take effort, but I think most readers of science fiction will have no problem getting through it. That being said, if you're not used to science fiction, this will be pretty challenging to read. This book, due to the writing style, has a highly futuristic feeling to it, and rather than being super intellectually, logically sound and explaining everything, the way the book describes everything, you feel a sense of immersion, and you also kind of sympathize with the main character who is also confused at what the heck is going on. You feel like a small part. You're dipping your toes into this massive cyberpunk world. This is an awesome feeling, though it comes at the cost of being challenging to read. I really like the cyberpunk aspect of this novel and the mystery behind it. I like the plot, but I will admit that the novel is far from perfect. In a funny enough way, this novel, to me personally, pulls out some strong feelings and wonder and confusion and just some deep thought, as well as it has many cool ideas to it, especially regarding cyberpunk. But the writing in the story I wouldn't really say is the strongest suit. The wonder and the imagination and how how different and cool this world is to me the best part of this novel. Would I recommend this book? Yes, I would absolutely recommend this book, especially to more geeky people or people that love science fiction or cyberpunk. This book will be quite challenging if you don't have much background in technology or science fiction. So if you're just used to reading romance novels and you just pick this book up all of a sudden, I think you could still enjoy it, but it's going to be quite the learning curve to try and read something like this. Also, this book does have a lot of drugs and some sex in it, so I would be a little cautious if you're like a young kid reading it. The best thing I could say about this book is that it will definitely stretch your mind, especially if you are new to the genre of cyberpunk. And if you want a more current example, it's kind of like Inception, where it's surreal, but it also makes you think, and it kind of expands your mind a little bit in ways you haven't thought about before. And that is my review of Neuromancer by William Gibson. I hope you enjoyed the review. These are just my thoughts, but feel free to agree or disagree. Thanks.